Do you still love me or not?
I need something outside.
Hi, welcome to Frankly Loverly. This is Financially Frankle. This is Frankly Financial, where awareness and clarity means power. It's been a long time since I did a financial video. I really want to pump a little more of these out. I've just been having a little fun doing the other things, but I cannot neglect my actual duties, financial literacy. Today's topic, as you saw in the title, is all about the very grave situation of financial abuse. Now, keep in mind, I am not a therapist, I'm not a psychoanalyst, I'm not any of these things. This is coming from a personal opinion. This is my point of view for some things that you should watch out for. Make sure you're not doing, make sure it's not being done to you. And this can be in any capacity. This can be familial relationships beyond if you have a spouse. This is like parents, this is children. Make sure you're not doing this to your children. Make sure you're not doing it to your parents. You might reflect and see that your parents might have done this to you. You don't want to basically perpetuate that these are normal things to do surrounding finances. Again. I'm not a licensed therapist or anything of that nature. I am just someone who's worked in the field, seen a few cases of things that, we can only intervene so much, and it kind of breaks your heart. I'm a stranger. I just work, at the place. I can't interfere with how you live your life. I can only report certain things when they go, like we have an elder abuse kind of step program thing that you can report possible elder abuse, but that also only goes so far, because if the elder themselves doesn't take it any further, there's nothing more you can do, So let's get into it. I wrote them down here so that I didn't get off track. Insidious methods of financial abuse. These are everyday behaviors that sometimes lead up to more abuses, or they start to become the norm in a lot of perfectly fine relationships. I'm not saying like if this is happening, you're getting abused, you gotta get out. You might be the one doing these things unknowingly, because a lot of people have, I feel like, because of other people, a lot of people think things are okay, when in my opinion, I don't think that in the grand scheme of things they account for a very healthy relationship with money inside relationships. There's a lot of unhealthy norms that I would say go on in society. One is just a slight manipulation tactic. It's always an emergency, plus they make you feel bad for saying no to helping them financially. Someone in your life, whether it be a parent. This is not necessarily for children, because I feel like children, everything's an emergency. Especially if you have a teenager. I just feel like when teenagers ask for stuff and money, it's always like, if I don't get it, I'm gonna pass out, I'm gonna die. This isn't for children, this part. This is more for full-grown adults, maybe even siblings or cousins, people in your peer group, in your generation of your family, or even adults in your family, people older than you, but they might be your cousins or your aunts or uncles or something. They ask you for something, but it's always a grave emergency. Like, this is the one thing that's gonna save their life. This $100 is all they need, because right now it's delivered. They can't eat. They've been starving all day. Like, they give you just a very, very big story about why they need the money. But it's constant. It's not like somebody pops up every once in a while. You have a younger sibling or an older sibling, and they call you every once in a while, and they're like, hey, I'm in a little bit of a jam. Do you happen to have this, that, and the third? It's okay if you don't have it. I'm just asking. And you're like, oh man, can't do it. And they're like, all right, you know what? Let me figure something out. I gotta call you back. Boom. Right? And you guys have a normal relationship, but they ask you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the person that every time you talk to them, it's about money and how they need it right away. This is the money that matters. This is what's gonna keep them off of the street. They've been starving. They don't know what to do. They've been crying all night. There's always something very highly dramatic about their money, about them asking for money. And then on top of that, when you're like, I can't do it, or you can't give them as much as they said they need, there's always an immediate guilt that they try to put on you in some way, where it's like, "Oh, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do then. I guess I don't know what," like, it just anything like that. It doesn't have to sound exactly like that, but that's why I'm describing what it is, because it might sound differently. It might sound like something like they just get upset with you. They're like, you know what, you're never really there for me. I don't know why I even ask you. Or, you know, you think I really need you to help me. You know, I'm just asking because you're supposed to be family. Or I'm asking because you're supposed to be my girlfriend. I'm asking because you're supposed to be my boyfriend. Things like that. The minute somebody starts attacking you for you saying no to giving them your money, you're in the danger zone of financial abuses. This one is a little trickier because it's more so with people who live together. This is the main component of this more manipulative tactic, and the person insists on handling all the bills. Now, there's a way to do this where it doesn't disempower, is that the word I want? It doesn't like take away the agency of the other person. It's really just someone being like, I make lots of money, I handle the bills, it's whatever. They're a little more open about the bills. You probably know how much things cost. You don't get guilted for maybe the bill is higher. They might make commentary on it because you live together. Those things, they're really like benign in my opinion. It's more so when the person insists on handling all the bills and you have no access to anything. You don't know how much anything is on purpose. Like, even if you ask, this is not to say if you're not asking and you don't want to know, that's a different thing where you're just like, please don't tell me about it, just handle it, I don't want to. That's different. That's you kind of just putting yourself in an ignorant position, but that's your right. You can do whatever you want, right? It's your life. This is when you ask, when you're like, how much was the water bill this month? And they're just like, don't worry about it. And you're just like, or, you know, hey, I've been making a little more money. Like, it's maybe some, I don't know what your situation is, but you're like, I'm making a little more money, but I'm trying to restructure the finances. I know I give you this amount for everything, but can we look at how to maybe, you know, cut back on these things? And the person's like, I'm handling it. Don't worry about it. Like, you just continue to give me your portion of the money. I'll handle it, right? They don't want to explain anything about household bills and finances of the home. They don't want to explain anything. That is, I feel like, a segue into financial abuse because they're controlling it in a way that makes you feel like it's in a good way. They're like, I'm doing the burden of all the financial work. I, you know, do the household budget. I take care of getting things paid on time. This, that. But the fact that you are inquiring about these things and they are actively not telling you stuff, that's when it gets into dangerous territory, in my opinion. That's one. It's a little trickier, but I hope you understand what I mean by that. Another one that is another manipulation tactic that looks like good deeds is when somebody makes you pretty much hand over your money to family because it's family. Yet, when you need some help financially, that family never seems to be able to gather any money together to help you. I think we've all seen this, like, with our parents and maybe their family, because if you have parents from certain generations, there are just certain generations where there's always somebody in the house that kind of gets the burden of being secondary parent. Because of that, sometimes a parent is enacting this kind of manipulation tactic where it's like, this is your younger brother, he needs this, that, and the third, you're not gonna get that for him, when it's not your job. It's not your job to do that as a sibling. It's not your job to take care of your other siblings. You can take care of your other siblings monetarily just because they're your siblings, you love them, and you're in a position to do so, but it's your choice. When somebody is actively guilting you, essentially, even though it might not feel like guilt, you might feel like, this is my duty as the older sibling, I'm doing so well in life. It's not your duty. You did not bring those children into You didn't bring those children into the world. You were one of the children that was brought here. Do you understand? If you don't have any parents left, that's a different dynamic. But it's, again, not the same thing as maybe you don't have any parents left and you've just been taking care of your siblings on your own. You've put that on yourself because you want to stay together. Maybe you guys were very young when it happened, so you've taken on this role. That is still something I think that you have to realize is still not your role. Being together, staying together, especially when you're young, trying to make it work, I understand you might feel that burden, but just understand that this is your choice. Don't feel like as you get older you have to still overly financially compensate for a lack of parents. That's the only way I can think of how to put this. But it is maybe something you feel in your heart is your duty. But again, it's a difference. It's a difference between you saying, oh my God, I'm doing whatever I can to keep you with me. I'm going to do this. Because I've seen older siblings take custody of younger siblings, especially when they're in a sort of household that's not exactly stable or not with a stable guardian in their lives. So they become the guardian. Then that's a whole different situation. Those are not the situations that I'm referring to when I speak about these things. I'm speaking about someone who has an active guardian in the house, and basically they are guilting you. Maybe you moved out because you're like, I'm finally in college, so getting away from my crazy family. And you still have siblings maybe in middle school because your parents had children really far apart. They're always telling you that you need to do this, that, and the third monetarily for your younger siblings. That is financial abuse, okay? Or especially in a dynamic where maybe you have a partner and the partner has a situation like that, but then they're also asking you to put your money towards their siblings or towards their parents or something like that, and they kind of guilt you about it, where they're like, my family is your family, you should want to help my family. That is financial abuse, in my opinion. Moving on, this is more on the partner side, so romantic relationship or a friend, platonic relationship as well. It could also be family. Anybody, a parent, anybody. Somebody has helped you financially and then won't let you forget it. So they bring it up, not even just in person when you guys are talking maybe about some deep things and you're like, remember when I had to lend you that $100, this, that, and the third, and you've paid it back. And whether you've paid it back or not is really not the topic. The bigger topic is if they're doing this in front of other people, especially people who didn't know about the financial situation, like essentially trying to embarrass you or trying to make you look incapable in some sort of way, that is financial abuse. It's emotional abuse, but it's using finances because they only help you. And this isn't maybe the first time they've helped you. They do this all the time. They'll maybe even volunteer their help. Like you'll just be discussing a problem casually, and they'll volunteer your help, and because you're in some constraints, you take the help. And this happens every so often, but every time afterwards they constantly bring it up, especially in front of people or even just to you. It's still kind of if you don't owe them the money and they're still bringing it up, you've paid them back timely. You haven't really asked anything. Again, they volunteered the help. You didn't ask them, they volunteered, and then they still bring it up like, remember how I paid that for you? In front of people, like in front of your spouse, in front of your family, in front of friends, maybe in front of your kids, whoever. That is a form of financial abuse because once again, they're trying to make you look incapable. They're trying to make you feel incapable of living how you live, or maybe they want to put you down for some reason, or maybe you're doing really well now and in the past you had asked them for a lot of help like that, and so now they're always bringing it up. That's a form of emotional abuse. It's because it's not actively happening. I wouldn't call it financial abuse because they no longer have the control over your finances. That's a main key thing here. Someone trying to in some way control the flow of your finances. Speaking of which, it would be constantly asking about or negatively questioning things you buy with your own money. I'm not going to explain that any further. It's exactly what I said. A form of financial abuse is constantly asking about or negatively questioning things you buy with your own money. The only caveat to this one is if you have told somebody, this person, hey, I spend my money on a lot of stupid shit. Please, can you, whenever I bring up something that I buy to you, or if I call you and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking of going here, or I'm thinking of buying this, or I'm thinking of spending X amount on that, and the person is supposed to be giving you blunt advice like that's a terrible idea, or do you really need another one of those, because you have actively told them you want to be talked down from buying stuff or spending your money recklessly. That's completely different. You have consented to the banter. It's financial abuse, or it's a marker of financial abuse when it is somebody directly in your living situation. So I'm just going to say something like a partner or a family member, like a parent. Sometimes emotional and mental, because they start to get into your head about how you think about money and how you feel about your own money, how you feel about making money. Those things, they're part of financial abuse. So I feel like this is one that is one of the more detrimental ones, because they start to make you question your ability to make judgments for yourself regarding money. That's very dangerous, because then it's sometimes, if it gets that far, can lead to you depending on them for their opinion, and therefore leading them to control actually your money, where you're starting to ask them, hey, do I need to buy this? Because now they've broken you down so much, you don't trust your own judgment about what to spend your money on or how to spend your money. You think, I'm so bad with money, I just can't. Have you tried though? That's another thing. Anyone who keeps you incapable of trying, because you might think, I'm bad at money, I've always been bad at money, but there's always time to get better. So anyone who just lets you sit in that, I'm bad at money, I don't even bother, it goes back to the whole thing where it's like the person takes care of all the bills because you're bad with money and you just can't. It can lead to financial abuse, because anyone who just lets you give away your agency without even discussing things or even trying to empower you to know a little bit, it might be something that's stressful to you, you don't like it, but you learn something about it, you know a little bit about it. But like anyone who takes away that agency from you in the guise of being like, I'm just trying to help you, that's financial abuse to me. A big one. This is a really big one to me, and it's a two-part. So it's being afraid to talk about money and being able to openly not discuss your finances in great detail. They're two sides of the same coin, because it's about talking about money. So on one side, it's the fact that you're afraid to talk about money in any capacity. You don't want to talk about it because you don't know how they're going to react. You're afraid of like a negative feedback loop where you're just going to start arguing, or it's going to be a whole discussion where somebody's talking down to you, all this other stuff, the criticisms. You don't want to hear, you don't want to go back and forth like this. So you don't even talk about money, and you feel like you can't ask for money either. This is very much so specifically in a partnership. So when you're with a romantic partner, if you feel like you can't even discuss money with your partner in any capacity, that's a problem. On the same token, if you feel like you have to discuss every single thing you're doing with your money, that's also a problem. And the reason why you feel like you're not able to keep any of your, you don't have any privacy around your own finances, I think that is a big indicator of, once again, handing over agency to somebody else, and that's a form of financial abuse. And I feel like you should have a degree of privacy with your finances, even if you live with your partner and share bills. Just because you're melding your life together, but you're still an individual person. Maybe you're a stay-at-home parent, or you're a stay-at-home spouse in between jobs or something like that, and you have your money. If they're constantly asking you like, oh, well, where'd you get the money for that? Where'd you get the money for that? Or you're afraid to even let them know you have any money because you're afraid they might take it or they might say something. So you don't want to talk to them about it. That can be a form of financial abuse, just because you're not even comfortable discussing something that, is very much important to discuss in a household. It's two sides of the same coin where you want to have privacy around your money. You don't have to discuss every little thing, but it's more so you don't have to discuss every little thing, but you're not hiding anything out of fear. And then also, you're able to ask for monetary help. You don't feel shamed about asking for money. Sometimes you don't even have to ask for money. The person, especially if you're a stay-at-home spouse or the stay-at-home parent, especially with younger kids, and the other person is working, you shouldn't have to be constantly asking them for money because they know your situation. You're in it together. It's one thing to be like, oh, don't forget, we need to get this, that, and the third. We need to buy diapers or something. But that person should be checking in with you to make sure you have the things you need or the ability to get the things you need on a daily basis without having to come to them first, like a please situation. I hope I got my point across. It could even be something like you're both working and you just need a little more money for something, like maybe, I don't know, you ran out of gas but you don't get paid till next week and you ran out of money. You shouldn't feel like, well, I can't ask my partner. But this is more common where people make a lot of unnecessary commentary on their partner's spending habits, and they know that it might be a sensitive issue, or they haven't even discussed whether it's a sensitive issue or not. They just like making a lot of criticisms about how their partner spends. And I think people treat that way more as a norm than I think it should be, because I think making unnecessary criticisms on what your partner is spending, unless it's like out of control, I don't think it's a good thing. I'll give you an example. I remember having a customer essentially who was making a lot of commentary about their spouse always spending money on like eating out, like because they both work like big people jobs, and the spouse eats out a lot more than the other person, and the other person's like, I mean, we both make good money, we're saving plenty, but I just think they spend so much unnecessary money on this. And I told them, and it turned into a fight. I don't know why they're mad at me, this and the third. And I remember I wasn't making much commentary because in a professional capacity, there's only to a certain extent in which I'm going to comment to you about your attitude. But I essentially said, well, is the spending negatively affecting you guys' like savings goals? Are they constantly, strapped for money? Are they complaining to you that they don't ever have enough wiggle room, or they feel like that? And they were like, no, not really. I just notice it and it kind of just bothers me because I think it's a waste of money. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe that's just something that they like, like everyone should have some indulgences now and again. And I kind of left it at that. They went on, but I kind of was just like, yeah, I hear you. There was I'm not going to argue at work. But I did have that feeling where it was just like, why are you so worried about, like, if it's not affecting anything you're doing in the household or future plans, or it's like they're not gambling the savings, not constantly in dire straits, putting themselves in harm's risk, it's just you don't feel like they should be spending because it's a waste of money. I think that steps into territory where you're overstepping. You're overstepping because the person's not doing anything wrong. They're spending their money in a capacity that they can fully, in a way that is so unharmful to anyone. That's the end of that. I hope some of these opened your mind a little bit so that you can be more careful about how you relate to other people and how you relate to money and how you relate to other people's money. Like, y'all remember that one? It was a video a while back where the parent was really angry at the child because the child wouldn't give them the birthday money. We don't know if it was a real video or not. I want to say it's rage bait. Some of that I feel like is financial abuse when you are doing that kind of stuff to your child. And in that case, the parent was upset because they spent all their money on a birthday party for the child and didn't have enough money for the utilities. And so they were asking the child to give up their birthday money so that they could pay utilities. And they were saying, you should be grateful I threw you a party. That's where all the money went. And in my head, I was like, that's your fault, though? I get the child wanted a party and, you might have wanted to do anything for your child. But if the party is going to cost the utilities Shouldn't you as the responsible adult be like, hey, the party's gonna have to wait because these utilities gotta get paid? Instead, you give the child what they want only to try to guilt them into giving you the money they got for their birthday. That's financial abuse. Again, with the guilt. Again, trying to control the flow of someone else's finances. That is financial abuse. It could come emotionally, mentally, physically, by physically taking the money from you, where it's like, give me your check, or you're not allowed to get direct deposit, or if you get direct deposit, the person has access to your bank account. The person insists that you share a bank account, even if you are uncomfortable with the idea. They insist that you share a bank account and put all your money in there. It's one thing to share a bank account because you want to dump all your money in there for bills, and so that bills can just get taken out of that one account and both of you don't have to like coordinate. You're just dumping money into the shared account for bills. But when they start being like, you have to account for all your money at all times with them, it starts to err on the side of caution of financial abuse. Thanks for watching. Be careful. Coming at you again with more financial literacy videos. So, bye. Do you still love me or not?
I need 7 outside.